Përshëndetje dhe mirë se erdhët në programin 200 që kësaj radhe, siç po shikoni, nuk vjen si zakonisht nga studio e emisionit, por po vjen nga Varshava, kryeqyteti i Polonisë. Arsyeja pse është se në 1 qershor u mbajtën zgjedhjet presidenciale, ku Karol Nawrocki, i cili ishte kandidat i opozitës, por dhe kandidat i krahut të djathtë konservator, i fitoi zgjedhjet. Kjo fitore disi lëkundi Evropën, sepse u interpretua se mos ndoshta kjo fitore do t'i jap krah frymës konservatore në gjithë Evropën. Kandidati i konservatorëve fitoi dhe kishte kundërshtar atë të Donald Tusk, që është kryeministër i vendit, por dhe që është një mbështetës i madh i Evropës dhe zgjerimit evropian. Por Polonia po haset ose po kalon edhe një moment tjetër specifik, atë të tensionit të madh ose të rrezikut të madh që i kanoset nga Rusia dhe nga lufta e Ukrainës. Këtu të gjithë flasin për një konflikt të mundshëm, përveç se flasin edhe për ndikim të madh rus. Programi 200 do t'ju sjell analiza dhe intervista për një vend që ndoshta nuk e kemi në fokus, por i cili është jashtëzakonisht i fuqishëm në Bashkimin Evropian. Konsiderohet si një nga vendet që ndoshta nuk vlerësohet shumë, por me ndikim në rritje. Ekonomia është në një zhvillim të madh, papunësia është nën 3%, si dhe ndikimi i madh në NATO. Do të sjellim pra një program të veçantë, kështu që pas shkëputjes na ndiqni për më shumë. Jeni me programin 200 dhe kësaj radhe jo nga studio, po nga Varshava, nga Polonia, për të parë se cilat janë prirjet që ndoshta do të marrin hovë ose jo në Bashkimin Evropian. Do të sjellim një analizë, siç tham, për Poloninë, për vetë faktin se ky vend konsiderohet i fuqishëm, siç tham edhe në çeljet e programit, me një ekonomi të fuqishme, me një papunësi të madhe, por gjithashtu me një ndikim të madh si brenda Bashkimit Evropian, ashtu dhe në NATO. Do të analizojmë se pse shoqëria e Polonisë është ndarë. Dhe kjo analizë do të vi për faktin se treguesit nga jashtë nuk japin shumë arsye që të ketë një ndarje dhe një polarizim kaq të madh të shoqërisë polake. Por tendencat, siç duket, që janë të ngjashme edhe në Europë, ndodhin edhe këtu, pavarësisht se parametrat ekonomik janë të mirë. Në intervistën e parë do të sjellim kryeredaktorin e parë të një prej mediave më të rëndësishme këtu në Poloni, gazeta Wyborcza. Është një gazetë që printohet, por edhe ka versionin online, por ka edhe aspekte të tjera mediatike. Kryeredaktori i kësaj gazete, në fakt redaktori i parë, ashtu siç e ka titullin e saktë, do të flasë edhe për ndikimin rus, që sa i madh është, dhe për një fakt tjetër që pavarësisht polarizimit të madh të shoqërisë polake, sërish edhe të djathtët, edhe të majtët, kur bëhet fjalë për Rusin, duket se janë bashkë. Por të ndjekim intervistën. First of all, what I want to know is, or can you give a brief picture to someone that doesn't know a lot Polish politics? What we understand from the last election is that the society is polarized, but why?
By why? This is a very good question. We have this polarization, very deep polarization for decades. We have two big, very big camp of if we talk about the political scene, conservative and liberal. I can use the word like that. Of course, this is more complicated, but the conservative and liberal. And it's a half-half. We talk about the society. For example, the last presidential election, Karol Nawrocki, the candidate of the conservative side, won by margin of only 370,000 votes.
This is really small for.
This is absolutely very small because almost 21 million people came to the election. So this is this is the smaller margin in our history. So yes, we have this big polarization. what is the source of this polarization? I think is 90s when this big camps was created, when communist regime collapsed and many people in Poland believe in the conservative
Values.
yes, and some was more liberal, yes. And we have, of course, two very strong persons for more than 2 decades in our at our political scene. Donald Tusk from the one side, this liberal side,
Yes.
and Jarosław Kaczyński from the other side. So these very, very strong persons are like a symbol for many people in Poland. And yes, this is like the not only fighting about the ideas, but this is the fighting about the persons.
Why I ask this question is because when you read about Poland, it's a big country. It's 40 million, around 40 million inhabitants. If you see the GDP has risen dramatically in years. On the other hand, unemployment is less than 3%. Infrastructure is impressive. Now they refer to infrastructure as good as the German one. Maybe better. Yes,
that's the new one.
So it is a big European force. So when you have this picture from outside, that means that Poland is going in a good way. So why this big polarization when it comes to values? Is it European trend?
Of course, if you look not only European trends, if you look about the America, for example, United States, if we talk about the society in America, in the United States, the society is the society is very polarized. Very polarized. This is not only, as you said, European problems. For example, if you mentioned Germany, we have a big problem. They have big problems with Alternative für Deutschland or Sarah Wagenknecht, the leftists, far leftist politicians. So, yeah, polarization is a big problem among the European Union, among the Europe. I think that one of the reasons of this polarization are big techs, really, and people, around 80% of people are reading the news on the big techs, on social platforms, not at.
So basically, they get informed not very well.
Yes,
that's the idea.
Yes, this is like a bubbles. Yes, everybody knows about the bubbles. If you talk about the social platforms, big techs, and these bubbles are. Have a big impact on the polarization too.
Okay, one article that I read from The Economist, they were saying that Poland is undermined country.
Yeah.
What it means is like a lot of potential, big economy in terms of European Union, especially very important when it comes to Ukraine and the war with Ukraine, and maybe doesn't have the potential and the value inside EU like it should have. Do you agree with this?
I agree.
And is it the reason about this sentiment?
I agree with this article in The Economist. I read this article too because it was very interesting to read about good stories about my country in this very important weekly magazine. But this is a problem of our politicians. During this previous government from 2015-2023, we had a conservative, some anti-European government, and that government didn't want to be a leader or try to be a leader of the Europe because they had a big problem with create any coalitions, etc. Right now, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. You should.
Yeah, we know Donald Tusk because of his engagement in the European Union.
But he's a real leader
figure.
one of the leader of the European Union as a Prime Minister of
Exactly,
Poland.
yeah.
Not only we talk about the Ukraine, but about climate changes, about the European policy, etc., etc. Yes, if we talk right now about who are the engine of European Union is France, Emmanuel Macron, is Germany, right now Friedrich Merz, and is Poland,
Yes.
Donald Tusk, yeah.
So, I have two more questions for you, Roman. One is only because of this reason that you said that Poland is very important, and with the result and polarization, and maybe the conflict that it will have inside Poland. Do you think that European Union will be somehow less powerful? Or is Polish politics, will Polish politics influence the European politics?
If you talk about the European Union, I think that we should create the real United States of European Union, because European Union is only as a whole whole system, whole project can be a real rivals if you talk about superpowers like China or United States. If you talk about the economy, for example, yes. So without and my newspaper published many articles about that we should have a federal.
Be more federal.
Be federal,
yes,
of course.
Federal.
Federal.
So more strong European.
But if we talk about the Polish politicians, are very careful about this issue, because for some people in Poland right now we have a big success of the far right party Confederation. This party is anti-European. They said only every country should have power to create, I don't know, judiciary system or taxes.
Yes, but this result in Poland, where the right-wing politician has won, do you think that it will fuel this kind of sentiment also in Europe? Because we have Hungary and Slovakia and other countries, or still this is only a minor situation that it will not influence European Union as it is right now?
This is a big threat for European Union, for my country too, because far-right parties are a threat for the democracy, liberal democracy. To be honest, if you have a Viktor Orban, we know what Viktor Orban did during the last 13 years, but Hungary is a small country, really. But if you have the same politician like Viktor Orban in Poland and the same policy, it will be a big problem for Europe. Yeah.
And in the last question for you, how much do you think Poland should be involved in involving with Balkan politicians, with North Macedonia? We have the sentiment that maybe Poland, as powerful as it is, as we described it, it's not very present in that part of the world.
Yeah. This is a problem. This is not our main direction if we talk about the Polish policy, Balkans. I love Balkans, and I think this is a mistake. But Poland, you must remember, liberal politician in Poland right now, for example, Prime Minister Donald Tusk, are a big fan of enlargement. Yeah. This is our support for your part of Europe. We should enlarge European Union. Balkan states should be a part of European Union.
Roman Emiliański, thank you very much for this interview. Thank you very much. Jeni pra me programin 200 dhe sapo ndoqët intervistën me redaktorin e parë të një prej mediave të rëndësishme këtu në Poloni. Edhe intervista e radhës në fakt ka të bëj po me një gazetar, por kësa radhe nga Agjencia Polake e Lajmeve. Do të fokusohemi ndoshta në pyetjet e ngjashme. Pse ndodh një hov i kraut të djathtë, i ekstremit të djathtë ose i konservatorëve në një shoqëri që duket se nuk do duhet ta kishte. Në qoftë se e shikoni Varshavën, ajo është jashtëzakonisht e ndërtuar. Për më shumë se 30 vjet, një vend ish komunist ka bërë një transformim të madh për t'u shndruar në një vend perëndimor me standarde të larta. Këtu të gjitha institucionet, por edhe infrastruktura konsiderohet se funksionon në nivelin madje edhe të standardit gjerman. Por pse është kjo ndarje e shoqërisë polake dhe ç'do të thotë për Europën? Në intervistën me kolegun nga Agjencia Polake e Lajmeve, do të fokusohemi edhe tek ndikimi rus, i cili nëpërmjet lajmeve të rrjeshme tenton që të ndikojë në shoqërinë polake. Për më shumë të ndjekim intervistën. Anthony, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to ask you, during this visit in Poland, what everybody is saying are two things. The first thing is the polarization of the Polish society, and the second thing is the threat, the imminent threat that comes from Russia with the situation which is going on. So I will start with the first question. As a journalist that you cover a lot of news, why do you think is this split of the Polish society? Why is this happening?
I mean, I can say what we saw in the past weeks with the elections that we had, right? So there were before us two sides, right? It was quite dominant that there was the Koalicja Obywatelska, the Civic Platform Party, which was dominating on one side. Then we had the Law and Justice Party, which was dominating on the other. Those were the two parties, and then there were blocs because they were forming coalitions, but they were dominating. And that is still partially the case, but there was something which we saw in the first round of the elections, of the presidential elections, where there was other parties which gained a lot of support. We can probably say that what happened in other countries in Europe, where the two parties, the bipolarization, kind of changed, that there were new actors which were coming in. And the elections showed it that in the first round there were other actors. There was the right-wing parties which got a big chunk of vote, and not only the conservative but the more nationalists as well.
Is this a European trend, do you think? Why I'm asking you this question is because before the election of the 1st June, the second round of the presidential elections, there were a lot of reports that was saying that after the Polish result, we will see where the Europe is going to head. Is going to be more conservative, or maybe is going to stay more pro-European. Is this right? Do you think that the Polish election could have influenced Europe as a whole?
I mean, we're definitely an important player in Europe, and it's not us saying this only, but I mean other countries knowing it perfectly on the defense side and on the economic side as well. I mean, the government is still the government, right? They are the government who was chosen in the elections of the 2023 year. And they are making policies, but then they can be in the parliament where they are still dominating, but then they can be vetoed by the president. And therefore, we can imagine that the president, which declared that he's disagreeing, but now he is the president-elect, but before, when he will be in power, he declared already that he will disagree with certain policies, for example, related to the New Green Deal, to migration issues. And we could see that it could influence our side of the world. We cannot for now say how, but we can already have a certain idea. And yeah, I believe that in Europe, on the other hand, in Romania, we saw, right, Nicu Sordan, which was chosen, and he was representing the pro-European liberal side and not the conservative one, which was Mr. George Simeon representing.
But on this aspect, do you think that maybe the American politics has some influence when it comes to the way the people vote now, not necessarily linking to, let's say, hard right-wing ideology, but still a kind of influence coming from President Trump?
I mean, the current president, which was chosen in our elections, declared that he has good relations. I mean, mainly the Trump administration, in a way, supported him because the Homeland Secretary, was here in Poland already now 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, and declared that he is the right candidate. And he participated in the CPAC conference, which is organized by people which are connected to the conservative Republican elites. And he is saying, and during the campaign, he declared that I have good relations with Trump and with the Republican administration, and therefore we will be secure thanks to that, because the US is the most important player and the most important card in our security strategy.
So when we talk about security, this is a very important issue. Do you have a feeling that people from Western Balkans, where I come from, do not understand the threat that comes from Russia and from the situation with the war in Ukraine?
I don't know if they don't understand. I wouldn't make those type of judgments that they don't understand or they do understand. I mean, on one side, we had declarations from, for example, the Serbian side, where they are closely cooperating with Putin, which we saw. And of course, this is against what we believe in Poland that should be done, because we see Russia as a threat, and that was declared by all our elites. And on the other hand, I think that there are still in Balkans, they are political powers. Then I spoke with the Montenegrin president, which declared that Russia is a threat. And for example, they understand the position of Poland and of NATO as such.
When we talk about this element, we were speaking about the polarization in the Polish society, but yet, even though it's polarized, when it comes to threats that coming from Russia or the crisis with Ukraine, the political spectrum is the same in Poland, yes? I mean, they think the same, yes?
I mean, in Poland, we can probably clearly state that people see Russia as the invader, as a threat, and that can be seen in the polls. I mean, of course, people are afraid of what's going on, as we are a country which has a border, right, with the Russian Federation, and we're an ally of Ukraine. So, and we have a lot of Ukrainians which are here. So our society feels that Russia is the threat, and that there's something need to be done about it. But then the interpretation of how this should be resolved is depending on the political side.
I want to ask you here as well, one aspect that is interesting is the way that in this situation, the threats, the way they're coming to Europe, to European Union, to your country is also propaganda or disinformation. And for me, it was interesting to see that combating disinformation is also a big topic only for government institution. In a foreign ministry, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is a whole department or how to take care of this issue. So from someone that maybe do not understand so much, how do you think this disinformation tactic works, and what do they want the Russian part to achieve with it?
I mean, destabilization is one of the key points on the agenda, and of driving different political opinions, extreme political opinions in the infosphere, to therefore make them prone to certain choices. And in general, it's not often about supporting one side or the other. It's about just destabilizing and antagonizing the whole debate. And we see that in the infosphere, unfortunately. We have institutions, you mentioned the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have NASK, which is the institution which is working and trying to closely watch what's going on. We, as the Polish press agency, we also have a department which is fighting with disinformation. And we see it as a danger because it is active. There are doppelgangers. For example, also the Ukrainian diaspora is influenced by this disinformation, and the Russian side is using this as a strategy to convince people to do certain actions. And there has to be defense. Ukraine has a lot of institutions, analytical institutions, that from the Ukrainian side, which are fighting and exchanging information with the Polish side and fighting together with that disinformation, which is different than the propaganda, which is often official, and then and this disinformation is pushing that propaganda from a side that you would never think that it would come.
Yes, just to explain to the audience, we are actually in the offices of Polish news agency, and you mentioned that you have the whole department. Not a lot of media outlets in Western Balkan have this kind of department, also not the institution. But how does it work in terms of combating disinformation?
I mean, we as a press agency, we cannot make standpoints, right? So we are not here to give opinions. We are here to fact check also things and to give the true value information. And in general, all our informations have to be fact-checked. As a journalist, even if I'm not working in the department, I'm a journalist of the foreign desk, and I have to fact-check all those things. But when we see something in the infosphere, which, for example, a fake news, which we clearly can identify, or we see that something is odd, then we have our friends from this department which are trying to read and dive in and see what is actually going on in that topic, for example. And then they are writing and they are debunking this information, this fake news, and they are trying to see how it got formed and why it got formed, what was the goal of it. And they're talking with specialists which we have around the country and with also political institutions to try to debunk those.
But the idea is that it's really considered an issue which endangers the whole society, not only just fact-checking, but it can create a problem. In the last part of the interview, I want to ask you about the Polish influence. We said it in the beginning, and also I was reading a lot of articles that say that Poland is gaining more and more power in terms of international aspects, like in NATO or European Union, but it's not very present in the Balkan region. What do you think? Why is this happening, or do you expect this to change?
I think the Balkans are still a very important region. We mentioned, right, the Russian disinformation and Russian influence. And as much as maybe the Polish government or the Polish society doesn't have that common of knowledge about Balkan countries, I think it is still very important because we know that this is a key part of Europe, which also we believe should be included in all those changes. I mean, some of the countries had similar history to the Polish one, somewhere in the Soviet bloc under Soviet influence, and therefore the changes that we are ongoing and the struggles are sometimes similar, which during our conversation off camera we had, and we kind of could agree on it. And I believe that the government in a way or another sees it. We have specialists, we have the OSW, which is the Eastern Center think tank, which is working and trying to analyze the situation there, and therefore it is informing the public. And I mean, we as journalists from the Polish press agency, we are also trying to cover the politics, and I hope that in the future we will have more and more chance to talk and exchange on that.
Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
Ishte kolegu Antoni Vishenski Mishal me një këndvështrim të asaj se çfarë ndodh në Poloni dhe çfarë impakti mund të kenë këto zhvillime edhe në rajon tek ne, edhe pse shpesh Polonia nuk është në qendër të vëmendjes. Sigurisht më herët dëgjuam edhe një intervistë me një koleg tjetër, me një gazetar të një prej mediave më të rëndësishme këtu në Poloni. Propozoj të bëjmë një shkëputje dhe rikthehemi me pjesën tjetër të programit, e cila siç e shihni kësaj radhe vjen nga Varshava, nga kryeqyteti i Polonisë. Na ndiqni. Jemi rikthyer në program, jeni me programin 200 që nuk vjen nga studio, po vjen nga qendra e Varshavës, kryeqytetit të Polonisë. Në vijim do të ndiqni një intervistë me një ekspert të jashtëzakonshëm, i cili është i punësuar në Institutin për Studime Lindore këtu në Varshavë. Një institut i cili ka për qëllim të ndjek se çfarë ndodh në lindjet, sidomos në Rusi. Polonia konsiderohet se mund të preket jo thjesht vetëm nga dikimet ruse, por edhe nga një konflikt i mundshëm rus. Këtu edhe ekspertët, edhe media flasin për një gjë të tillë. Në këtë institut bëhen studime të jashtëzakonshme dhe folësi i radhës, profesori i nderuar, ka ndjekur për 30 vjet me radh liderët rus, se si sillen dhe si se veprojnë. Pra, çdo të thotë për Poloninë dhe për Europën, dikimi rus dhe çdo të thotë konflikti në Ukrainë. Të ndjekim intervistën. Mr. Rotkiewicz, you had the presidential elections, and it seems that society here is divided. But is it divided on issue on Ukraine and Russia?
Well, I think there is in Poland quite a strong consensus on the issues concerning war in Ukraine and the relationship between Poland and Russia and generally the West, if we can still use that term. So I think in a broad picture, of course, there are various details. Each political party has its own take and thinks it would do things better than the other. But on the key issues in terms of what kind of danger and threat Russian imperialism presents for Poland currently, and I think there is an agreement, and I think the sign of it was that there was really no debates about this during the presidential campaign.
So basically, everybody agrees that there is a big danger
Yes.
from Russia coming to Poland. So how can you explain to a Balkan audience, to a North Macedonian audience, that how dangerous is the Russian threat to Poland?
Look, this is, it's always good to have examples that are drawn from individual countries' history and its relations with neighbors to really convey. I'm not sure that this is going to be a right analogy. I'm a historian, by the way, but I think this is a kind of threat. If you can imagine, let's say, a big power in your neighborhood that attacked your neighbor with an explicit aim of totally liquidating its independence and subordinating it to its own rule. And you had a history in which that power in the past had controlled not only your neighbor, but also your country. And you could read consistently, knowing the language, being intimately familiar with that power's political thinking, and reading in their publication and hearing their internal discourse about what they would like to achieve towards you.
You said before that you have studied the leaders of Russia and their mindset. So is it a danger that Russia can open war to Poland?
Yes, I think I can easily imagine a scenario which I think is quite likely in the event that Ukraine is forced to capitulate or is defeated on the field of battle and the Ukrainian resistance collapses. We have to go back to the demands that Russia placed on the table in December 21. We basically demanded from NATO to withdraw its forces to the east, to the 1997 border, basically leaving Poland, the Baltic countries, the Czech Republic, the entire Central Europe defenseless. So their objective is to get to the point where we live at their mercy in terms of their military hegemony. And I think if circumstances are right, if they think that the Americans are not going to be engaged for a variety of reasons, or they make a mistaken assessment about the will of the American administration as to their willingness to provide us with defense, they could easily start military operations to enforce their demands for demilitarized and completely subordinated in strategic and military terms Central Europe to their own power.
So I want to ask you here about two issues: how Poland is preparing to defend itself about this scenario. I know that Poland is spending 5% of GDP in military and security, but is it this in accordance with NATO, or it does its own steps to raise the level of security?
Well, I don't think these things are there's a difference. I mean, NATO is composed of NATO doesn't have its own forces. NATO is composed of national forces. So, but this is of course the question of plans, and we of course build up our military forces in line with NATO defense planning. We now have a plan in case, emergency plan in case of Russian attack. This is of course secret. I don't have access to secret information, but generally we know that the plan provides for a certain number of forces, and so we are trying to fill to fill the NATO plan with real military.
But you have
forces.
also extra.
But also, of course, we also plan for a case, which I think is very unlikely. But as you know, in military planning, you have to plan for the worst possible case, in which at least for some time we'll have to fight alone, because it might take some time before Article 5 is being used, is being
So is there a possibility the Article 5 of NATO to be activated?
Yes, I think this is. I think that even though there's been a lot of confusion because of the way that President Trump talked about NATO and talked about its relationship with European allies, as I understand, the present American administration assured during its visit and during Polish visits in Washington that in case that America stands by its promise to help provide military aid and participate in defense of Poland in case of an attack. And the best proof of that is that American forces are still present.
So with President Trump, you don't have a feeling that there is America going away from Poland or Europe?
This is more complicated. I think there is a chance that and there is a possibility that American forces in Europe as a whole are going to be reduced. The final plans are, I think, are not really made, but again, we were told by the representatives of the current administration that these plans are not, the reduction is not going to affect Poland. So, of course, this is, strategically speaking, this is also a problem because the American forces, let's say in Germany or in Western Europe, automatically would be used for defense if it comes to this. You know, I hope this is not going to happen. But if this comes to a real crisis, yes. But the point is, the very presence of American forces in Poland, I think, reduces very strongly the chances of direct Russian attack against us. Because the last thing that the Russian side would want is to get into direct military confrontation with the United States.
And the last question for you, Mr. Rodkowicz, is what do you say to the skeptics in Europe, in European Union, and also in the Balkan region about the real threats that Russia has for Europe, for Ukraine, or how dangerous it will be for all the continent if Ukraine doesn't win the war?
The Russian regime that is in power now is a very peculiar regime. Its origins are in post-communist early capitalism in St. Petersburg, which was basically, I would describe their political philosophy is geopolitical racketeering. So it's not only they want to establish military hegemony, especially over Central Europe, Balkans, by the way, too, but in their minds, in their way of operation, they want to draw economic benefits from that. So after establishing military hegemony, other demands will follow in terms of trade, in terms of business deals, in terms of opening the national economies to Russian players. Even if I were to be located, let's say, on the Mediterranean and part of the Balkan region, I wouldn't like to see my future decided by Moscow and St. Petersburg security-criminal elites, and rather would want to define my future for myself and for my country. Of course, that for us, for small countries, it requires some kind of agreement, arrangements, but there are different types of agreements and different types of arrangements. You cannot compare the arrangements that exist within the European Union. It's strong, even the strong players like Germany and the smaller players, with arrangements that exist and existed historically between Moscow and its puppet state.
So that the danger is there, and then it should be understood. Yes. Thank you very much for this short interview, but I think very important to establish how the situation is between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, and all the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's I'm very happy that you are interested in our situation and that you provided me this opportunity to explain our point of view here in northern part of Central Europe.
Thank you very much. Ishte profesori Witold Rotkiewicz nga Instituti për Studime Lindore këtu në Varshavë. Me këtë intervistë ne pak a shumë do të përmbyllim programin 200, një program pak më ndryshe që nuk vjen, siç e shikoni, nga studiot e televizionit Alsat. Megjithatë, po tenton të sjell një këndvështrim tjetër të zhvillimeve ndërkombëtare që kanë impakt edhe tek ne. Ajo që mund të thuhet është se Polonia po rrit ndikimin e saj si në NATO, ashtu dhe në Bashkimin Evropian, dhe shumë studiues thonë se në fakt këto ndikime tashmë mund të derdhen jo si përpara, por edhe në Ballkanin Perëndimor. E mira e përgjithshme është se për politikën e jashtme nuk ka shumë ndryshime, edhe pse shoqëria polake është e polarizuar dhe qeveria aktuale në fakt është shumë pro zgjerimit ndaj Bashkimit Evropian. Këtu do të përmbyllim programin, programi 200 do të vi sërish javën që vjen. Deri atëherë, mirupafshim.